Will Forster MP is the Lib Dem MP for Woking. Will, what should happen now?
Good evening, Peter.
Good evening.
Around a year ago, the trial concluded into Zara's murder, and following that trial, I called for an immediate safeguarding review. I'm pleased it's finally reported, and the report is exactly what I feared it would be, that Zara has been failed by the state, particularly by Surrey County Council. The County Council knew she was at risk even before she was born. Social workers tried to do the right thing, and they tried to take her away from her family as she was born. But Surrey County Council changed their mind. And that mistake onwards was a tragic mistake. And that meant she was abused and tortured and murdered.
What on earth led to that initial decision? I mean, there's no possible reason, there's no possible scenario where any child should have been within a country mile of Urfan Sharif, her father.
I completely agree. It was a huge and tragic mistake. So County Council social workers tried to do the right thing, but they changed their mind. They were convinced by the father. I think this report lays bare that our social care system isn't as resourced as it should be, but people are not as well trained as they should be either. We have very junior staff dealing with life and death matters.
But that's what social workers do, Will, don't they? They do deal with life and death every day. They shouldn't, but they do, and decisions that can lead to really, really bad things happening. You're right in that they need better training. We should pay them better. We should get a higher calibre of people doing that job. But it says so much about not just Surrey County Council, but the system in general, that these things continue to happen. I don't know about you, Will, but I'm fed up hearing from reports that lessons will be learned, you know, failings happened and we'll change things the next time. This has gone on for far too long. I'm sure you're very angry about this, as I am too, Will.
Oh, completely agree, Peter. This report is damning on the national stage, but particularly on Surrey County Council, where they've had a catalogue of failings. The day before Sara Sharif, they turned up at a house, or more accurately, they tried to. They tended the wrong house and they didn't go back that day. Because of those catalogue of mistakes, I've called for Surrey County Council's Children's Services to be taken over by the government and put in special measures. I don't have faith that Surrey County Council's leadership locally can protect vulnerable children they failed Zara, and I don't want them to fail others again. So earlier today, I raised this in the House of Commons chamber. I've asked for an urgent meeting with government ministers to ensure Surrey County Council's Children's Services are taken over by the government and put in special measures.
Would that necessarily solve the problem, is my question, Will? Because the Department for Education, which deals with the care system, they have many problems of their own. Even if, you know, let's say for the sake of argument, you get a meeting with Bridget Phillips and the Education Secretary, and she says, yes, Will, totally take your point, we're taking control, we're putting them in special measures. Would that necessarily solve the problem? Because this is system-wide. This goes from bottom to top in terms of so many issues and problems with the care system.
Well, this report was written by experts. They said that there were 15 recommendations, 6 of them just for the national government, 6 of them just for the local government. There's clearly some very particular failings within Surrey County Council. The fact that the managers weren't supporting their struggling social workers, they had policies that they completely ignored time and time again. I'm very concerned about the local situation, but I do think we need to make some steps to improve things nationally. I've worked with Rachel D'Souza, the Children's Commissioner, because of something that she's recommended. I proposed Zara's Law, which was to set high national thresholds to ensure that social workers are consistent across the country and intervene very early on. There is a risk of postcode lottery. At the moment, my area in Woking and Surrey, I think we are most at risk because of the poor mismanagement of County Council, but I want to raise standards across the country as well.
I want to raise standards too, and I wish you well in your campaign, Will, and perhaps we'll talk about it on another occasion as well and follow up the kind of changes that I hope you get. I just want to ask you about 2 aspects of this. One is a point from Leslie. He says, I think the judge involved and all the people who let Sara Sharif down should be named, prosecuted and jailed. What do you think of that? Real accountability?
So I do want real accountability. One of the things I've asked for is the leadership of Surrey County Council, whether it be Rachel Wardell, who is the head of Children's Services, or other people, be called in front of MPs to be quizzed on how they allowed this to happen and what they're going to do to improve things. So I'm all for accountability, particularly on the judge. This report states that in some of the family court proceedings, judges were not given the full facts. They were not given the full facts by the county council. So although I want accountability, it's very difficult if you haven't got those facts.
Yeah. And what about the racial element of this as well? There is clear evidence that people were worried about being called racist. It's interesting that when Sarah was 8 in 2021, she began wearing a hijab to school. The head teacher was actually commended in this report for asking the family about the change, but told it was her choice after becoming interested in Pakistani culture after a family holiday. How much do we need to actually stop worrying about not just people in authority, but people, neighbours, friends, people who would have seen her, teachers, whoever it was, to say, actually, hold on, this isn't a cultural issue, this isn't a religious issue, this is an issue of child safety. At what point and how do we actually stop hiding behind this stuff or feeling intimidated by these kind of issues and actually focus entirely on child safety?
We do need to focus entirely on child safety, and that's what the report says. The report has a section about the religious, race, the cultural aspects. They said that social workers, amongst others, didn't understand Zara's background. They need to understand those differences more. They should have asked more questions. The family wasn't Muslim in faith. We believe Zara's father attended the mosque once. He was an evil man, and he used all the tools he could to disguise the abuse that he inflicted on Zara. That includes the hijab. When he used the hijab to disguise those abuses. That's appalling, and people should have questioned that and raised that sooner. He also used loopholes in our home education system to disguise the abuse. Now, home education, I think, is brilliant for a lot of families and children. But as soon as he knew the school was noticing her injuries, he pulled her out of school.
Yeah.
I think, and so does the Children's Commissioner, that parents should lose the right to home educate in the event of child safeguarding. And that's something that I think we need changes nationally.
I'm astonished that isn't the case already, Will. Absolutely astonished.
You're quite right to be astonished. That is something that I want the government to introduce legislation on. Okay. Parents should have a right to home education, except in the event of child safeguarding. But Surrey County Council had some powers. They knew they should have inquired, but they didn't. And those were the home educator visitors that tried to visit the wrong house. So we do need national change, but unless Surrey County Council or other local authorities are competent to implement them, I still worry for children's wellbeing.
Well, I wish you well in your fight in all of this. Keep us updated. Come on again. Tell us at some stage in the future. We're never not going to be interested in this case and the change that can happen. And thank you for speaking to us this evening. That's Will Forster, MP, who is a Lib Dem MP for Woking.